begin by commending Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's GCFR for demonstrating a lot of courage and political will in undertaking far-reaching economic reforms aimed at repositioning Nigeria's economy for long-term sustainability. I also wish to acknowledge that while reforms are often difficult in the short term, they are very necessary for national recovery and future prosperity. It's worthy to note that the administration has consistently engaged us, the subnationals, as critical stakeholders and as partners in the implementation of its economic agenda. The improved revenue of the state, in fact, there's no gainsaying that one of the most visible outcomes of the reforms has been the significant increase in allocations to states from the Federation account. And Benue State, like other subnationals, also has witnessed improved physical inflows and thereby enhancing the state's capacity to resuscitate our economy, execute developmental projects, and also to meet critical obligations. This increment has enabled our resources also and given us the strength enough to provide not just as the state alone, but greater opportunities at all states to address long-standing infrastructural deficits, and particularly so in Benue State. The increased federal allocations have strengthened the state's financial position, and it's also expanded its ability to invest in priority sectors, especially the resuscitation of moribund industries and establishment of new ones. Like, for example, we have the Food Basket Breweries, then the Bensona Juice, and the Concentrate Factory. Again, as I speak here, we're just inches away to resuscitating the Taraku Mills. You recall Taraku Mills is one of very giant conglomerate we've had, but had been quite moribund, and then on top of it we had lots of legal encumbrances on that, and we have freed all those, and then we are just at the verge of signing with some big establishment to come take over and then to boost the economy of the state and their personal economy as well. The administration has prudently deployed available resources toward critical infrastructure of security support and education, healthcare, in agriculture and rural development. This improved physical capacity has also enabled us to accelerate ongoing projects and also to initiate new interventions that directly impact Benue's citizenry. For those who may be quite conversant with a narrative back in the state, salaries, the first time I came in, I would pay salaries. It was like part of heaven had come down to earth for the excitement, that was not only with the civil servants, more so with the pensioners. Because pensioners, you are owed for some of them in the local government over 7 years, and then in the states for 4, some 3 years, and then some 90 months. So when we now came in, we improved revenues. We also set new gears on our own IGR. So that also helped us, to meet all our salary obligations and then to address workers' welfare and concerns. So we made that a priority, and for some reason, payment of salaries and pensions were celebrated like, some other project. But it was simply because they were in drought of what was theirs. So again, efforts continue to be in place to ensure that I think with we, as at the last count, which is last month, were left with just a chunk of people to completely get done with their own their arrears. Arrears were owed to some of the civil servants up to 70 months. The same thing with pensions. Pensions were even worse, and there was gratuity. But with the good inflows we've had and the augmentation in our IGR, we got us in a very comfortable position. So just to reaffirm the government's commitment that will continue to ensure that workers remain highly motivated. The more they are motivated, given what is theirs, the more productivity I remain confident would always have from them. We also, in fact, the first time we came in, we had declared a state of emergency on a number of our infrastructure, particularly the roads. We were in a very terrible state, but we, thank God, were able to, as I speak, we made lots of mileage on 550 kilometers of roads, and then over 422 new ones, and then also reconstructed structures in basic education across the 23 states. But the one that we kind of declared an emergency on was the road. We didn't have the connectivity from one local government to the other. So why is it that we took a heavy chunk on road construction and then revamping? It was simply because of this inflow. The inflow came and continues to come, and then it's been truly channeled and then been rechanneled very appropriately too. So it again is a result of this renewed hope, dynamic that is in place. We also remodeled and upgraded facilities in all the primary healthcare centers. You'll be surprised, when we came in, things was simply not in place at all. Primary healthcare system were completely down. We were almost not knowing what to do, but the persistence of the inflows, there was this huge difference that has now been created. So our primary healthcare, it's working, and we now had to kind of make a break to come to the tertiary. Again, I'm quite excited that Benue has just become a hub where medical tourists come to. We have a few people coming from Abuja as well. And then with the state surrounding Benue, people coming there because of the status we've raised in a tertiary health system. Again, why is that so? Because of the good inflows we've had. So we must not play blind to the fact that reforms for long term might take a longer walk for its effectiveness, but the fact that we are deliberate, we are directional, and then we are purpose-driven on this. We are able to make a lot of mileage on this. And we're hoping that we'll continue to make deliberate connecting communities and opening up economic corridors still. If you go, the works we have done on urban renewal in the metropolis of Makurdi, it's even way, way less than what we have done in the suburbs. And if you go down to the metropolis itself now, every place is turned into a work site. Again, this is because of the reforms. If you continue to do one trend of activity, one certain way, using one common dynamic, expecting a different result, it never comes out that way. So we just deployed new mechanisms to ensuring that our local folks are reached and they are feeling the impact of all these economic reforms. And I'm happy that they are quite excited about every bit of it. Benue, it's an agricultural hub. And so much also has been impacted in there as the food basket of the nation. I will continue to leverage and then improve resources also to strengthen agricultural productivity. And investment in support also for farmers, for true wealth creation. I will continue to be effective so that they access the farm inputs, extension services, and value chain development. For those who do not understand the insecurity situation in the state, you may like to know on authority that since 1999, we were in the front lines of insecurity. 1999. But truth be said, this is one single administration in the last 3 years, from the federal down to us, the state, that is fought insecurity to a standstill. Standstill in the sense that there are some anxieties over there. There are troubled areas still. I don't want to exaggerate it, but so each time I talk about this, I just try to be very modest. I say relative peace is returned to the state. And what are the indices for you or for me, to let people understand that relative peace is back to the state? I think we were the third state on IDPs. I think the Northeast, Northwest, and then us. And if we have people now who are voluntarily going back home, going back to the farm, and then it tells you the leverage that is occurred in between. So relative peace, it's highly coming there. As agrarian state, we talk about food insecurity. If we do not go back to farm, and then as a food basket of the nation, definitely the whole situation worsens. It is my excitement that they are the leverage of farms and productivity therefrom in the last 3 years has been quite loud and big. How do you know that? Again, when they smile to the bank and when they talk about it, when they expand their farms, and how are they able to do this? Again, in the last 3 years, we've been giving through the federal government, we've been distributing free farm inputs, including fertilizers and herbicides and pesticides. And again, with all this, we know that we're talking about a population of over 7 million people. So we also impute the state buys half bag of the fertilizer and every other farm input, so farmers would only pay for the half. And we have sustained this. And this is why there is huge increase in the produce in the state. And we believe that we'll continue to do it because it's been very, very helpful and productive to also to us. Again, let me just go back slightly on this agri-cover thing. Everything you talk here for economic growth of the state must tie in with agriculture. For those who are large farmers in the state who also have tractors, you know, they get those tractors at next to near zero money to go and expand on their farm. It's very deliberate, so that we were not talking about, you know, food insecurities. If there were no cushioning on our insecurities, definitely people would not get back to the farm to do this. So I remain again quite grateful to the to the federal government for her formidable support to us, both on agriculture and then on the security infrastructure as well. And again, on our part, we never just sat back to allow the federal government alone to impute on the security matters of the state. We acquired 120 Hilux trucks and over 620 motorbikes to our different security agencies, just to enable them to be quite effective at what they are doing. And we do have a lot of results. There are certain elements I wouldn't speak publicly on the efforts we've made, but so the last time you heard about Yelwater, you need to get back there to see where we are physically. So a lot of work has been made in roads made, and are we completely out from the woods? Since the entire nation is engulfed, we cannot isolate ourselves that, you know, we're completely out from there. You may recall that I think some 2 weeks ago, some bad guys again went to ambush one of the very formidable person who has been helping us. He's not necessarily he's a Benue citizen, but neither of the Idoma, the Tiv or Igede extraction, but has been very, very supportive because he has lots of deep roots with different communities, and for some reason, unfortunately, he was hunted down. So it's to tell you that why we try to make a lot of mileage on this. People have turned even matters of security into politics. And when you do that, you're playing with people's lives. So I think there is a call for conscience. There must be a call for conscience. You know, and more so that it is the season again for politics. You know, they care less or not at all. But when you do that, this is the only nation you have to call Nigeria and your own nation. For the Benue citizenry, it's only Benue State that is your state. When you come to Abuja, you are visiting FCT. When you go to Lagos, you're only a visitor in Lagos. Benue is your home, your parents, your everybody is back there in Benue. So there is a call for conscience in here. And then also a change of mind on the number of thinking different people acquire. I think it should be very relative. Also for all major stakeholders to get back into our own communities. The traditional rulers, again, they've been very, very helpful to us. Different community leaders have been very, very resourceful on quenching the insecurity fires in the state. We've all been able to do this simply because of, again, economic reforms. We've gained lots and lots of support from the federal government, and we remain very, very appreciative. It is my hope that this will continue to happen. We have had, again, as part of the federal government support to us, they are in there, it's security matters, so I just want to be very economical with words in here. But for wherever they are stationed, we've created kind of shields in there for them to be a bit cushioned so that they do their work effectively, like creating motorized boreholes at different locations. I wouldn't be specific here, but it's in those front lines, frontline local government in the state. And then we also made supply of boats in the river Benue cut across, through to Taraba, then Nasarawa, then it moves straight down to Kogi State and all that. So with the support we continue to give on this, we hope that just in a very immediate future, insecurities in the state will be something of old. Again, on our IDPs, we've gained a lot of support from international communities as well. We've had some housing for them through our state support, and then the Renewed Hope Initiative support through the First Lady, who made some humongous donation for the IDPs all over the state. So we continue to ensure that as they are going back home, they don't just come back again to the IDP camps. There's certain social impacts and challenges which must not be ruled out. The reforms have also imposed or have imposed short-term economic pressures on a number of Nigerians through inflation and increased cost of living. When this was happening, Benue was not an exception. But the moment people now started going back to the farm, and then more produce coming from the farm, we have different indicators now to talk about inflation in the state, and also on the increased cost of living in the state. We must also understand that these challenges remain very sensitive, but we don't just sit back. We continue to involve all stakeholders. Everybody in the state is a stakeholder. So we continue to touch areas in their lives that will be very, very productive and supportive to them as well. Again, as I had mentioned, the tractors we've hired, and we'll continue to give the free farm inputs. We'll continue to give the subsidized rates also to Okada people. We usually get bikes, and then they come and get relatively very affordable prices, and they're excited about that as well. It improves to cost down their cost of living as well, and jacks up their own efforts. And we hope they also feel those impacts. My Benue people need to be fully assured that every additional resource accruing to the state will continue to be utilized very responsibly and transparently as we are doing. I know that there's a lot of excitement because back home we are witnessing what is never witnessed before. The road infrastructure, continued payment of salaries and pensions, the the primary healthcare systems being revamped, and then new ones springing up, and then the new factories we have also built, all addition to the excitement we continue to have. And I want to believe that this is the only way to go, that will continue to stay very transparent, so that they understand administration's commitment to accountability, also to value money, and then to understand a prudent management of their public resources. So government will continue to welcome constructive criticisms and public scrutiny. It helps much when you say this is not the way to go. You profile some solution. This should be the way to go. So when it is constructive, you help us to see what can be in place to replace what it's not necessarily ideal for the people. I remain very optimistic that the benefits of the ongoing reforms will become more evident as economic stabilization progresses. And again, I also call on my Benue citizenry just to remain very patient, again, resilient and supportive of ongoing efforts to build a very stronger economy for all of them. Also to reaffirm the commitment of the government to translating available resources into tangible improvements in their very lives. We will continue to do this. The reforms initiated by their president have undoubtedly altered the physical landscape of the states. Benue, it's primarily number one beneficiary. I keep saying this, and this is why my excitement increases. So for Benue State, we've created opportunities for greater investment in infrastructure, as security, education, healthcare, and human capacity development as well. Why we continue to deal with a number of challenges, because you are living beings, challenges would never go away completely, but we'll continue to ensure that they are fully managed and managed well as well, to the credit of every person who is chipping in every shade or form to ensuring that the state survives, the state grows, the state progresses, and the state develops. Thank you for giving me your ears, everyone. For all those questions, you may recall I had stressed that we have become a medical tourist hub. I knew a number of questions were going to come up here. So what I gave you was just kind of a 10, 12-minute summary. For any person to come into the state, we must ensure that our security is in the front burner. And this we have done. In the state alone, we have a civil protection guard. That is, we introduced that. We also have a separate security unit called Anyamyo. It is a joint task force. All those two I've mentioned here are joint task force. And then we have the operations in there. And then we have the community vigilantes as well on their own, trying to support the fight against insecurities in here. So if we were not safe, people would no longer be coming there. The most vulnerable people are the ones who are even coming, like the sick people. Then it tells you how it is. The other elements I didn't want to speak so much on. What is our secret on curbing all these insecurities in the state? I wouldn't want to speak much on that, but we have a number of dynamics in place. We monitor, we check I'm able, as I'm sitting here, to check what's going on in different places that are in the front lines in my state. I wouldn't want to broaden on that. But that is one mechanism we have done. We've also done quite a chunk on getting some information. So all these put together helped so much for us to remain proactive on insecurity. So, and this is why they come. Someone had mentioned about the safety of the IDPs in terms of them going back to do their farming. The state has also made some farms strictly for the IDP women. What we have done is, we tried this last year, it worked out. We farm. I'm also one of the monitors on the farms. We farm. We supply the tractors. We supply the farm inputs. So they come in their own. We have also formed cooperatives among the IDP women. So at the end of the day, it is their farm. They plant it. As we provide the input, they take care of everything, including the seedlings. They plant, we support. So at the end of the day, they have only one question to ask us, as they did last year. The common question of, do you want to buy as a state? So we have again done it this year as I'm speaking. It is their money. So why are we doing that? It's simply to enable them to, and not just to be dependent on the handouts that we're giving them in the IDP camps. Now they've even gone back. So this is even improved their own wallets. So, and they already have something to bank on. So as they go back, they're only going to continue. We support it. So they will continue to move on that. How we did the first litmus test on this was in the different areas. For example, in Goma local government, we are portioning farmlands also to security agencies. So they farm side by side with them. So while they are doing their own farming, they're also giving security to our own folks. So at the end of the day, as the bad guys are running away, their farms are being expanded. So but the portions we gave to the security agencies, that is where they are going to be farming. So that is theirs. So they have that. So another system we brought in place was, as they move out to go to the farm, in fact, the initial case we did, they moved out to the farm, they went to the security people, so they farmed at certain hours, and then they now came back in the evening, back to the IDP camps. So that was continued for a very short time, and then they were now able to go alone and then to do their own work. And this is what we have now sustained. So when they now leave the IDP camps to go back voluntarily just to continue with their farm works, I think that's a very good mileage. So their security is being taken care of. If we were loose on security back home in the villages, definitely they wouldn't be going there to farm. Someone had asked about farm inputs. I had earlier on mentioned here that every year we do this, and we've sustained this in the last 3 years. We, the state, we were in partnership with the producer of fertilizer. So we get our own share. I think this year alone we had over 1,000 yeah. How much? There are over 1,000 metric tons. Federal government supplied over 600 trucks to us. In fact, those are just about to be distributed as well. We launched last month, early part of last month, what we got in the state. So now when that goes out, the state government pays half of it. So the farmers only pay half. And this is why there is some food boosts in the state. So if we have done this in the last 3 years, I don't have any reason why it will not be sustained and continued also going forward, because it's working. And then about the Taraku meat. You may recall that when I came in, the state that had a lot of factories now had no factory at all. Remember, we had Benue Cement Factory, which was sold out. We had these Taraku mills, which became moribund and was never working again. We had the block industry and all that. So we had to prioritize. We wanted to take on Taraku mills instantly. Recall, Benue State is the #1 producer of soybeans in Nigeria. We'll continue to maintain our own position. And this is why we earnestly need to revamp our own Taraku mills industry. As we put in so much, remember that, again, or recall that the very staff of the Taraku mills were owed over 1 billion naira plus. Their stipends were never paid, so we thought it was only going to stop at that. So when I now paid the stipend, we realized that there were even more litigations against the company and the government on that, so we had to take it one after the other. So now we are at a point even to talk about it, that the company that is come to take over the Taraku mills, it's come in full because we've cleared all the encumbrances of litigations on this factory. And this is why it took us quite a long time to get in there. It is my hope that it's going to give very direct jobs and also a number of indirect jobs. That will boost our own revenue, and it will also enhance us on a number of levels. So it's something we gave very directional attention to, and I'm very hopeful that we're going to get results on it quite soon. Some other person had asked, how many tractors do you have? I can't tell you the number of tractors we have. We are agrarian. It's only now that we're going commercial. People who are doing subsistence farming. So, and for us to move from where we were, this is why we even introduced all the tractors, so that we have also introduced farm cooperatives. How would farm cooperative work? If we have a number of farmers, say 5, 10, if you're an old farmer and you are good at your game, even an individual can also be part of this. So we support you. You show us the land you have. We give you part of your requirement on this land of yours. We also have Young Farmers Club. For Young Farmers Club, it is completely free. They show us a piece of land. We farm. We give them seedlings. We provide other inputs. It is their farm. At the end of the day, as we offtake, we buy over. And then we boost also their own individual economy and their cooperative economies as well. So this is where we're heading to. Each local government has a number of tractors. And what we meant on this kind gesture was for those who have now moved up to commercial farming. Remember, even kind of individual subsistence farming can also be commercial, but how commercial is that? So I'm looking at large base driven. So with this kind of a support we give them, the responses have been very positive. So as they come, they get those tractors. The only thing is we give them some timeline. Each local government with their own tractors, they have the leverage to. Each person that comes stays with the tractor for just a very limited time, and then you bring it back for other people as well. So we've done this in the last 2 years. So as the results move in, we are going to increase even on the tractor of a thing. We have a scheduled meeting with a group of people who are supposed to have us exposed to that. Again, back in the state, where the state is in collaboration with a company that assembles tractors and other mechanization for the farms. So as we do this, it's simply going to enable our farmers not to go distant, but right within there. Government helps you to get back on your farm. You just you chip in some little, and then you move on. So this is the way we intend to do, so that we have them boosted so much. My thoughts on state security, it's a very, very brilliant idea that we're all now talking about state policing. I happen to be one of the very early governors even to propose and suggest that we go the trend of state policing. Is the federal policing not working? It is working. It is working quite all right. But when you have the young people from right behind their own very neck of woods, they understand the terrain. They understand what they're expected to do. In the yesteryears, when any stranger came to your town or your village, you knew the person. It was because we grew up in those areas, and then we knew those who not necessarily came in from there. So that helped. And that also garnered a lot of intelligence assemblage. So why are we not doing that anymore? So when you have people coming from within, they understand better, and then they even do the work even more conscientiously. In other climes, series of questions were also raised. If those from within the state or local government are in uniform, protecting their own local government and the state, there are going to be a lot of abuses. When we have increased monitoring, when we have the rules of the game even to guide, I'm very confident that orderliness is going to be a thing of the day. It's just like democracy now. They say there should be no cyberbullying. Once someone gets a set in his or her own hands, they don't even know where what they write is going to end up at. But then they say, they demarcate people, they demarcate their only nation, they demarcate the only state they come from, they demarcate individuals who have built up their reputations for many, many, many years because of politics. And then but the rule says, there should be no bullying at all. I mean, there should be no cyber stalking either. So as we continue to talk about it, to monitor it, to improve on the regulations, and to see what regulation works, I think it's going to be that. This is electioneering is just at the corner. If I were not directional, if I were not deliberate, I'll be just talking about what I'm going to do in 2027. I would have just started campaign. But the law says there's no campaigning. So I'm walking the very fine line of the law. So I know when to come to you and then now start talking politics. I'm not talking politics. I'm talking governance. I'm talking economics. I'm talking economic reforms that the president is brought and my state is a beneficiary, and how much it's helped us, how much it's trickled down. When I talk about buying tractors, when I talk about buying farm inputs, when I talk about the IDPs going back and the state makes the farm for them, I'm not removing this money straight from my pocket. When I talk about us not owing anybody, people are wanting to terminate their work and collect all their entitlements at work. Now, a number of people come forward to say, since you have improved on this, then they want to retire at this time. We say you don't have any need to do that. We have done this in the last 3 years and it's going to be sustained. So if the reforms are not working, I'll be the number one person to talk about it. And then my state, I mean, we have people who write, and then outside of politics, we have people who just want to poke, conversation. So they would have done that a very long time. So we really need the state policing. We need this. Regulations are going to help us, but the outlaws must be contained as well. So how do we do that? It's your duty, it's my duty. It's the duty of all the stakeholders. You know thieves from within your area. You know them. We know those in the next of woods that are not giving us, enabling us to have sound sleep. So what do? When completely you don't say anything about that, you're also an accomplice. But when you talk about it, I mean, when you point at them, when you give information, when you share your information gathering, and then you enable the bad guys to be picked out, I mean, and then they face the law, and quiet comes in and peace comes in. So I feel we should not, for fear of abuses. People are abusing politics. Politics is the best form of governance. At least so far we have seen it the best form of governance. People abuse it. People abuse it. When you have your own reputation, they try to ensure that they throw stuff at you, including bullets. But you have to take the bullets because you want the right thing to be done. So, and then when you don't even make the hard decisions, then it's no longer sound politics. Sound politics require people have made it so, have chosen, have elected you, have sent you. So if you are appointed, elected, chosen, and sent, then you're on a mission. You have to bring back stuff to them. So when you don't, it becomes abusive. And so it can be in a similar thinking. So we require the state policing. There were lots of fears also from the other climes. When you get out there to study, you see police on the street, you see them here. So every advanced nation and state is a policing state. This is a fact. This is a fact. Every, nationally, internationally. So if we allow fear to sink us in because of abuses, we can check abuses, but we have to make up our minds that we'll check abuses. And then it works out. On all that you have heard me speak here, the doors of Benue State entrance are opened. Very, very wide open. When people posted the number of the roads we have constructed, the underpasses, the overhead, and the interior road infrastructure we did, they posted that it was all AI. If you want to get over there to Benue State to verify these things I'm talking about and you're having challenges of getting to the state, we have a very long bus at the liaison office that it's open for you Just go book that you want to go to Benue and verify what the governor of Benue State is spoken here. And then you come back and then invite me in and then you challenge us. So Benue is on the pedestal of development and growth. And we must stay that course. We remain very grateful to you who have a lot of power of the pen to continue to project the reality of what is. If it doesn't work, we say, I would be the #1 person to say it's not working. So I'm doing all the roads. It's not because I came from the church and the church gave me so much money to go and construct or to go and fix hospitals and fix schools. But it's simply because the economic reforms are working and Benue is on that pedestal. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
When I came in, this is how it was begun. When I came in, it was only the legislature that had full autonomy. The legislature. So the first outing I had with the judiciary, at the start of their year. And then with the local government leaders, I made it very clear that it is a law on autonomy and they have it. So when I speak about this very passionately, it's because I'm not hiding nothing. Our local government autonomy is sacrosanct and they have it. The judiciary also have their own autonomy. These are verifiable facts. So when you hear the shenanigans talk about non-autonomy of the legislature, of the local government, of the judiciary, why are you not interfacing directly with those who are manning our local governments, with the judiciary even in the state, and then with the legislature itself? And they are truly applying this well, they are. As I speak now, on their own, our local governments have also declared emergency on road infrastructure. And they have turned a number of areas in their local government into work sites. And that is exciting. Where do you think the money is coming from? It's what they get. They are very directional about this. And then they have taken up on those projects. And they are doing them. So it's a plus, not just to us, also to the law on autonomy itself. And I believe and I encourage every other person who is not on this path to move into it as well. Because it works. How does it work? It's already freed my mind on a lot of things. I have less headaches. All I do is supervision. Get out there, cross-check. If it doesn't work, and then my life is even easier. Once I point it out, I say, you received this last month. Let them understand how it's spent. So I receive all the reports, and it's less stressful on me. It's less stressful. So what have you put in place? If you say insecurity, itemize, have insecurity, got all this spent. If you say it's farm, I need to understand that. So my role there primarily now becomes supervisory. So, and I have less headache. So once you have the right people in those places, and then the rest of it gets a very seamless flow. So it's ideal. Benue State is #1 compliant on autonomy.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.